time, freedom, relationships, love, all those things combined are what really matter. And then, yes, throw money in that, happy days.
This is the Freedom Mastery Podcast, the place to learn about rent-to-rent and other property investment strategies. Your host, Camille Domsky, has spent 5 years studying advanced property investing strategies and using creative methods to acquire houses. Now, he wants to help you reach your property investing goals. Let's get started.
Welcome, everybody, to another freshly squeezed episode of the Freedom Mastery Podcast, a place where we want to invite you to our property investing journey. And the mission is one, straight and simple. If we can get one person inspired to change their dreams into action in property, then we are already winning. And as always, I want to bring you new, fresh blood of people who are feeding the property industry, who are doing this day in, day out. And I wanted to bring our special guest in for some time now. Chris is a very special person, particularly to me as well, because I'm working with Chris and I'm managing his properties also for about 3.5 years. So Chris is a phenomenal property investor. He specializes in buy, refurbish, refinance strategy, and he's doing multiple different things in this zone, but not only. So Chris, why don't you just take it over? Why don't you just kick it up and tell people who you are and what you do?
Okay, as you mentioned, my name's Chris O'Hare, originally brought, as you can tell by the accent, from Manchester, brought up in Salford in Manchester, very working class Irish immigrant family back in the 70s. Tough life. Everybody works on the buildings. These hands weren't built for that. So from an early age, I just thought there's got to be something else. However, where I was brought up, everybody does what their dad did. There wasn't really opportunity. I was very artistic and creative, but literally was nobody. I went through school with kids crowding around me, watching me draw, but not one teacher mentioned there's careers for this kind of skill set. You're going to join the army, and I'm Irish Catholic, so that wasn't going to happen. Or you do what your dad did. That's what 90% of people I was at school with went. Some really bright kids digging holes. Not that there's anything wrong with digging holes, but there was a lot of missed potential there, if you ask me. But when I look back, that kind of sitting into what society was offering never worked for me anyway. And then when I was from a very early age, it was a bit weird. I was about 7, looking around and thinking, I love my family, but I can't live the life they're living. So then when I was about 11, fell into music as just loving music. We're literally again, you were playing football or you were listening to music. And when I left school, picked up a guitar. My mate said he would be the bass player. Another mate said he would be a drummer, even though none of us could play anything. So we just started learning together. Then probably within 3 or 4 years, we had our first record deal with a label called One Little Indian, who I've had to change the name now because it's not woke. You can't say Indian or something. But it was the label where Bjork and the Shaman and Chumbawamba and Sugar Cubes. So they had Skunk Anansie. So they had quite a lot of chart success on the label. Unfortunately, we weren't part of the chart success on the label, but we released our first album with them. Then we moved to a major label, released a few albums. So in total, we did 4 albums. We recorded 4 albums, ended up as record producers and produced a few hit records. I think it's Australian #1 or something, or top 3 in Australia. We did the last track I ever worked on producing was for a band called The Tamperer. And when I decided that's it, I'm leaving music, the track we produced was #3 in the UK charts. So that was
Nice.
that was a good one. Left on a high, which was a nice thing.
Wow, that's what you want to do.
Went back to uni. I was 34. Went back to uni. Literally had very little money from music. We had a recording studio, so I had a share of that to realise, but it was only 20 grand or something. So started working in a bar, so I didn't have to use my nest egg to get me through uni, because at the time I was living with my girlfriend at the time, and So we had to pay our way. And then graduated. And when I graduated in 2001, they would just had the dot-com bubble. So there was no work anywhere, literally no work. In Manchester, they were offering you jobs with websites and so on. So I came down to London, started looking for work. Again, people were just laying. I did an internship and they'd offered me a job when I graduated, but literally we did an end of university exhibition in the Truman Brewery down in Brick Lane. And they all turned up and just said, "There's no job for you, mate. We've just laid off 40 people." So my whole world fucking collapsed. As like, I gave up music just as we were starting to earn money. I've gone into this and the whole industry has collapsed because of the dot-com bubble. So I ended up going around accepting a job as a secretary in the design company I wanted to work. Not a secretary, a receptionist. He said, "Take that job, we'll give you design work, and when the next full-time job comes, you get it." I'm a great believer in saying yes to life. It's the right place. If you're in the right place, then good things happen. So I said yes to that. And as it happened, when I said yes, a job came in that only I could do. None of the guys in the company could do it. It's a interactive digital job. So because I'd said yes, I was waiting to go down. The big boss called me up. "Can you do enhanced CDs?" they were called at the time. I said, "I can." Half true, but say yes and work it out later, which again is a great lesson for property. Went down, started working on that, never worked on reception. But if I'd have said no to that because of pride, or I wouldn't have got that start. So I'm a great believer in just do it. Just take some action. Don't wait for perfect. And again, those principles have seen me through property. So that was great. In that company, I learned so much. All manner of design, interactive, 3D, video editing, web design, web build. So it's a real broad spectrum of what I learned, but the money was shit. Really shit. And was still commuting back to Manchester on a weekend for me.
Okay.
At this point, I'd bought my first house. So I didn't own my first property until I was 37, my own home.
Yeah.
So I was 37 when I bought my first house.
Oh, okay.
So people go, "Oh, okay, I'm 33 and I've not got going." I'm like, "Hey, trust me, you've got time. You've got time if you take the action." Ended up working in the city, working 18 hours a day. Sorry, I was running a creative services department in the city of London. So financial services, learned a hell of a lot about financial services, which to this day, it's like I'm absolutely intrigued by it. And I'm really interested in how the money machine, the financial sector operates. Again, served me well in property. But I'm equally abhorred by the way it works and how money's made and all those things. So it's a monster. It is a monster, and nobody really knows how to control it. But weren't there for 3.5 years or something, 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. It was brutal. I was wired. I wasn't a nice person to be around. Actually, it's not, I don't think. I know. Obviously, by this point, I was married, and that kind of really affected home life. So a lot of shit. And we were classic rich dad, poor dad. I was earning more money than I'd ever earned, but I was spending more than I was earning. Like after 3.5, 4 years at working in the city, earning more money than I'd ever earned. When I left, I had 5 grand in the bank. That's it.
Wow.
We go and spend 350 quid on a meal without blinking. We'd have 1 year we went to Australia, Dominican Republic, Tunisia, Ireland a couple of times. We were just spending, trying to justify why the stress of the work was worthwhile. So it was a great lesson for me in terms of, prior to that, I used to think if I had money, I'd be happy. Like money equal, like to me, coming from a really poor working class family, all you focused on was, I want to be rich. And then when you get a few quid, you go, "Fuck, they've lied to me. This isn't what it's about at all. Money's an enabler." I always say money's a magnifier. So if you're a generally happy person and you get a few more quid, it'll magnify your happiness. You're hysteric and you're not very happy. then it'll make you more stressed because you'll be going, but I've got this money, so why aren't I happy? So I believe it's just a magnifier of whatever you want. So the goal is sort yourself out, and then whatever money you get will help them.
Hey there, I hope you're enjoying the episode right now. If you're anything like me, you're definitely not a spectator. You want to know what's next, what's the next move. And the next logical move for you is to send me a text on my private number. It's 075 22 571 026. That's 075 22 571 026. With your permission, my aim will be to understand your plans and goals, and then to identify actions that will take you from where you are right now to your point of destinations. This will truly help you to gain unfair advantage in your rent-to-rent business. Now, let's get back to the video.
That's brilliant. I think that is a quite a good way of looking at things and making sure that you look after yourself and your happiness, because money does not buy happiness. And you can be the grumpy bastard kid in the town, but if you have the money and you're still grumpy, then you've got to be more grumpy. I 100% I agree with you.
Like, you're confused because the story you've been told all your life, be one of these rich Instagram people that's so happy 24 hours a day. And then you realize they've got bloody bulimia, or the relationships that fell apart because they're working 20 hours a day. Or it's so cliche and corny, but the simple things are the things that matter. Time, freedom, relationships, love, all those things combined are what really matter. And then, yes, throw money in that, happy days. If that is in the right place, you can have all the money in the world. It doesn't.
There you go. So you just gave people the formula for a happy life.
There you go.
Where was tell me it was live today? Brilliant. So you hit the nail on the head. Amazing. And I'm really glad that you started from the ground up and you are coming from the place where you really struggled to a place where you built your own wealth, because people don't appreciate it when you are born in a family that's already doing great, because you will not go through the whole grind of the process. You're proving, you're the living example that you can make money in property even if you start from the lower end. And I want to touch base on that a little bit, because today you've built a nice portfolio of properties. So what is it that you currently do? What do you have in terms of your property portfolio?
So I did it exactly as all the time. So if I just go back a little bit, so when I started property, I did some property training, 25 grand. And I was like, this is a scam. It's a scam. Because I'm coming from where I come from, everybody's cynical because nothing good happens to anybody. So your cynicism is reaffirmed every bloody day. But it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you're cynical and you're negative, then cynical and negative things happen to you. It's law of attraction. And so I met a girl and she started telling me about, I'm an property investor. I'm like, oh, what, like a landlady? She goes, no, I'm a property investor. And she spoke about OPM and MIMO and all these kind of things. And I was like, what's all this about then? So I was intrigued. And thankfully, I owe her so much in hindsight. She signposted me to lots of networking events, to some training. And I'm still thinking, is she on a kickback for this? Is this like all a scam? Too good to be true. Too good to be true. Anyway, I did lots of networking around I was living in London, Southeast London at the time. So I did all the networking around London, down into Medway, met as many people as I could, just try to find out, is this true or is it just bullshit? Is it just a scam? Anyway, I'd seen enough people who told me their story and property had changed their life. So I'm thinking, it's all right for them, but this can't happen for me. I just can't believe it. So I just couldn't get my head around it. However, this was a couple of years prior, this was 2018 at that point. So a couple of years prior, 2016, I turned 50 and Brexit happened. And they were two big milestones for me because I thought, right, you're 50, and my lifestyle, by this point, I had my own design business. Life was pretty good. And in the back of my head, I was always going, I'm going to have an early retirement. I'm going to retire early and travel. That's what I'm going to do. But I'd never sat down and worked out a plan of how that was going to happen. It was just, I have a good life. I've got a really good income. I'll be able to afford it. But actually, it makes me sound bloody idiotic. But it had never dawned on me that when the work stops, the money stops, because you're selling your time for money. And when I was selling my time for money, I had no time left to actually go and do the things I want to do, which is travel, paint, write music, all that kind of thing. So that was a shock when I worked it out, because I looked at my pension. Musicians were never big into putting money away for pensions. And it was going to get me like $3,000 a year or something like ridiculous. So
Okay.
that wasn't 55 wasn't an option. I looked at 60, it was $4,500 a year. I looked at 60 and it just went, I worked out to get about 30 grand from a pension. I was going to have to work till I was about 78 paying into it. Obviously starting very late. So that was a disaster. And then with Brexit, that kind of gave me a mind shift change, because I just thought anything can happen. So I can't defer the responsibility of my well-being to the government, to society, to the system, because anything can happen. I don't care whether you're in now, it's happened now, just got to make the most of it. And like I said, without Brexit, I don't think I might not have done property. Although I was a firm Remainer, it kind of was a kick in the backside to actually focus on actually taking control, coming up with a plan and doing it and implementing it. So after looking around, I did a bit of crypto and all this and just looking for an answer. And that's when I met that girl and she signposted me into property. So I fell into it, totally accidental. And I went to the training. Normally there's the old training where you do a 3-day cheap one and then you sign up to the big one. Day one, like morning of day one, I put my hand up. She goes, "Yes, Chris." I go, "Where do I sign up for the main training?" She's like, so it was hilarious. And the people were thinking I was a plan, because they were going, "What was that about the trainer?" I said, "Oh, I've met all these people." And are you? And I remember somebody doing like a little crescent around me because I knew something they'd suspect didn't. And they're all around there and they go, "Do you work for them?" And I went, "No, honestly, I don't." And a little voice from the back went, "Not yet." Pull it up, I did end up working for them. But so I signed up and it was, like I said, 25 grand. But when I handed over the 25 grand, I just thought there is literally no point signing up to this and bringing my baggage to the table. Negativity, cynicism, questioning. I would question the life out of anything. So I went with it. I just went with it. I had a mentor called Mark, and my line to him was, "Yes, Mark. Whatever he told me to do, I would do." And then after 18 months, we had a little plan for 18 months. After 18 months, I'd assess it. And if it was bullshit, then I'd come up with another plan. For that 18 months, I just committed to doing for the first time in my life, doing what I was told without questioning it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Change.
Although I'd done well, most people thought, "Wow, Chris done really well." I weren't where I wanted to be, and my life wasn't what I wanted my life to be. My time was awful. Even when I had my own design business, I was at the desk all day into the night regularly, working overnight sessions regularly. Again, paid, but spending. And the scary thing was when I realized you got no pension to speak of, like I said, 3-4 grand a year, and you want to travel. How are you going to do that? So to me, it was like, I've done what I'd done what society told me to do my whole life. I got educated, I went and worked hard, you pay your tax, you do all what you're supposed to do, and you end up in shit. So there was this other thing, and I just saw it as there's an opportunity here. And if I don't do it, in the back of my head, it'll be, I wonder if I could have done that, or was it true? Or so I just went for it. And because I think it's that, if not that, then what? Because you've got to have a plan.
Yeah.
Okay, there's an option. But if you're not going to do that, what? More of the same. That means you're going to work till you're in your 70s before you got 30 grand a year. So you'll have 30 grand a year for 6 months before you pop your clogs. So it was very easy, to be honest with you. And by this point, my connection with money, I didn't link money and happiness. So actually handing over the 25 grand, it's an abstract thing. Still to this day, don't have an attachment to cash, to money. It's more about Is this a good investment? Like when you've got a portfolio, a large portfolio, the notes flying around 5 years, 8 years ago would have scared me to death.
Yeah. Okay.
It's just that. It's just notional. It's a Ponzi scheme. Cash is a Ponzi scheme. That's why you need to get into assets and not cash.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Cash is diluting every single day, isn't it?
Oh,
It's losing
absolutely.
its value. Whereas if you're in property and you're owning property, absolutely. That's what's growing your capital. So that's great. You touched base on something that I wanted to ask you because obviously for many people, £55,000 is a lot of money. Some people don't even have that much. So from a person who was very cynical and skeptical to a guy who was the first person in the room on the first day of training, raising hands saying, I want to sign up straight away. What caused that change? Was that a bit of a process or did it happen overnight? How did it work with you?
No, like I said,
with that money.
coming up. Sorry, what was the last point there?
Was it like a process or did it happen just overnight to give people that amount of money?
No, so like I said, 2000. So I signed up I started the property training in July 2018, but I'd been looking for the thing since 2016.
Okay.
Where it happened and I turned 50. Like I said, I looked to all sorts. And then when I met that girl and she started signposting me, I went to I listened to every podcast I could listen to. I went to every networking event I could. And it was like a fact find. So that by the time I went to the training, I was like, I always wonder if I hadn't, would I have had the balls to say, some people just go there with no intention and then they do it and go and pay the 25 grand. I don't know whether I would have had the balls to do that.
Yeah. Okay.
So I almost feel a bit, what is it? The Jesus one, the doubting Thomas, bless you, bless those who have not seen yet still believe.
Wow. Biblical approach.
My childhood Catholic roots are coming out. But yeah, so I don't think, so I've got loads of respect for the people who I now know who went the other route. They're like, don't forget, we're not buying anything, we're not upselling, we're not doing any of this. And then they did it.
Yeah.
I don't think I could have done it. I went to is it Kevin Green or something? Went to one of his and he plays I don't like it. He played every trick in the book, building the momentum, the music, the takeaway, every trick in the book. But I'm there like, I'm going to sign up. And then I'm like, I just watched the Property Hood podcast the day before, and they were talking about training courses and going, when you go, don't bring your credit card. So even if you want to, you can't. And I thought, I can control myself. So I've got my credit card in my pocket. And I was up and walking to the back of the room and I thought, no, you idiot, you said you're not going to do this. They make it out it's only that week, but it's every week. But I said, maybe I'm underestimating, maybe I could have done it. But I do wonder whether I could. That was a much cheaper course as well.
I think this is probably something that you'll never find out because you've made your own path and you made your own decision. One way or another, you got to that point today where you're owning a lot of property. So tell me a bit more about that. Obviously, I mentioned at the beginning that I'm managing some of your HMOs because obviously you're in HMO. Tell me a bit more about that.
A lot of training will say, start off really basic, start on your kind of baby buy-to-lets. And I think that's a great start point. People are always in a rush. And don't get me wrong, I was in a rush because at this point I'm 52 or 52 and a half, whatever. And I haven't got forever to make this happen. I've got friends who started in the late 20s and I'm like, oh man, you've won at life already. Just take your time. Don't stress. You're on the right path. It's that thing, isn't it? The ladder's against the right wall. Just take the steps, as it were. But so I started on buy-to-lets, so I live in Southeast London. So I started with buy-to-lets around here, did a couple, but the market changed massively, which was great to the ones I own, but because I knew how to run the numbers properly, I could see that future purchases, because of the purchase price to rent ratio had changed. It wasn't a working area for me. I remember getting an offer accepted, and between getting the offer accepted and completion, which was about 8-9 weeks then, it was a bit quicker in them days. The value had gone up 30k. I hope he does. I hope he doesn't have a look at the right move. Thankfully he didn't, and we completed on it. But it killed the strategy for me, which was, I loved that because it was right on my doorstep. So that changed. So then I had to look at being a remote investor. So investing generally up north, looking for better returns, better ROI. I do everything on ROI, not yield. So money left in the deal and what return on the money left in the deal.
That's the best way to calculate the value.
Oh,
Investment.
yield. I don't know why people. And if you're an international investor where you just throw 200 grand into a property and you don't mortgage it, then I can understand yield. But for us because yield doesn't tell me how much money's left in the deal, what are my expenses on that. It's literally what's it worth, what you're getting at.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'd advise everybody really, if you're working with a fixed amount of money, it's ROI because you want that money to be working as hard as it can. And so I went up to the northeast, started doing buy-to-lets up there. This was towards the end of 2018, early 2019. Did a few Mimo deals, which was great. I didn't enjoy it up there. I've got to say, I didn't enjoy it. It was hard work, but needs must. Then I changed strategy alongside it. So I did a few buy-to-lets and then I did some additional training on HMOs because my thinking was I'll pay once for my training and then I'll implement the training. Then my portfolio will pay for future professional. I still on and off have mentors. I do lots of mastermind. I'm a member of lots of mastermind groups and things like that. So I still constantly reinvest money into self-development. Networking's massive. Massively.
I agree. Okay, great. So tell me a bit more about your latest deal because the hotel is the mega deal. So tell me a bit about that.
Quickly then. So went from buy-to-lets to HMOs, and I've got HMOs in the Midlands and in North Manchester. And then I met a couple of guys really early on in my journey, and we got on really well. And we always said, we'll do a deal together at some point. So we then started looking at doing a hotel, an apart hotel, smart hotel, very light on staff, just you change over staff, maybe a local duty manager, but we don't have a reception and all that kind of thing. So we were looking at that strategy and we got an offer accepted so we were looking at places with a 52-week season because we didn't want like a summer boom and then a winter famine. So we got an offer accepted in Edinburgh, but we were gazumped. And then before we got all the paperwork through, then we got an offer accepted subject to planning in a place called Aviemore in the Cairngorms in Scotland. So it's a big kind of outward boundsy place. So hikers, bikers, mountain bikers, kayaking. And then in winter, it's a ski resort. So
Nice.
Not quite 52 weeks, but not far off. So that works good. So we had an offer accepted subject to planning and it was going from a B&B to a hotel. And we were like, no problem. So at this point to do that deal, we had to raise we were using development finance. So we had to raise about 400K to do the deal, which we had. That was one of my tasks, was raising the private finance. So we got that raised, but the planning, oh my God, we thought it was going to be like tick box 12 weeks, nearly 2 years and 30 grand later, we got a go. So basically we had 85 objections, all from local B&B owners. Funny that, isn't it?
Of course. What a surprise.
The planning guy came and said, what's going on with this? It's already a B&B. You're just converting it to a hotel. He goes, I get less objections for wind farms. What's this like? And then we used that line to one of the local people we were trying to convince that a lot of the objections were on the committee. So it was rejected. The planning officer recommended it, but because it had 85 objections, it had to go to committee. And when we spoke to the committee, we were saying there's obviously a monetary motivation here. It's like people not wanting the competition. It isn't really about the property. It's we're out of towners, and they don't want the bar raising, so they have to work a bit harder. Because the planner said he gets 80 less objections for a wind farm. They then used that against us in their committee statement, going, the strength of objection to this is extreme. It's getting more objections than a wind farm, and it's no way back, the way around. So anyway, like I said, nearly 2 years. But we haven't touched on mindsets a bit. I always think there's 3 pillars on property and on training in general. The tactical, how you're going to do it, how to run your numbers, how to find your area, what your strategy is, compliance. The network, which we did touch on briefly, being surrounded by like-minded people, and especially people who are already doing what you want to do, is gold dust. There's a famous thing, you become an amalgam of the 5 people you spend most time with. So choose them 5 people wisely. If you're going to choose your 5 people to be highly successful, happy, good balanced millionaires, the chances you're going to become a highly successful, happy millionaire suddenly goes through the roof. And conversely, if all your mates just sit in the pub on a weekend, watch football, drink beer, smoke fags, you're going to be more to that end of things. So choose who you, doesn't mean you cut people dead, but you surround yourself with, because it's, you absorb their positivity there. And there's a lot of help goes on. Property's got a very bad reputation, landlords, but people really love to chat about your problems, their problems, property problems, and help and give advice and introductions. You have to work to earn that. You have to immerse yourself in a network, something, and go and add value. But what you get back is amazing. And then the third thing is the mindset. Because when it started, I remember them just going, and we need to do a vision board and manage. And I'm just like, oh, all I want is property and money. And what I promised myself, yes, Mark. So I immersed myself into it, did my vision board, broke it down, costed it, put my milestones in, and then when we were young, we didn't have much money. So we didn't know, if somebody said 5 grand, we couldn't get the concept of what 5 grand meant. So our currency that we understood was pints. So say a pint was £5, we'd go, that's 1,000 pints. Is like the way we could comprehend the scale of it. Whereas everything now to me is properties. So if I've got a £200 a month gym subscription I want, I'll do another buy to let and that'll pay me the gym subscription. If I want to do a big holiday, it's going to cost me annually, and it's going to cost me 10 grand. That HMO pays for that, or 5 buy to lets or 4 buy to lets. So I break everything down, and suddenly your goals, even if they seem really big and unattainable, if you go, I want that villa in Tuscany. So, mortgage repayments on that going to be 2 grand a month, and I'm probably going to need 30, 40 grand deposit. Okay, that's 2 flips and 2 HMOs. And that abstract dream property suddenly becomes tasks. Just do 2 HMOs and do 2 flips.
Yeah.
So sit down, it makes it achievable. Everything, there's a great book. I'm sure you go into lots of books. Prior to property, I hadn't read a book. Apart from, I used to do a lot of manuals. I was always into technical stuff. So I do all software and all that kind of thing. But, I probably do 20 books a year, 30 books.
Awesome. Wow.
Yeah. And all business, mindset, positivity, anything adding value and under that pillar of mindset. Right. Such an advocate for manifestation. I just use these things day in, day out. And, whether, I don't even like verbalizing it because the universe is listening, but whether it's real or not, just taking that action is positive. There's things I've done, and before taking the action, I sit down and I visualize it, picking up the phone, having the call, talking about this, diddle-a-da, putting the phone down, having achieved what I want, go and celebrate with my mates. I'll visualize that process, pick up the phone, and the strike rate is through the roof.
Yeah.
Whether that's because the practice makes me better prepared or whether it's the universe, I don't know. But the reason I got onto this was with the hotel, like I said, we needed 400K. And then the planning was like, look, it's going to be like 18 months here. So I needed to deploy those funds. So I did a few buy-to-lets. but I weren't getting rid of the money quick enough. It's like 400k to deploy. So I thought I'll do another HMO in Coventry. So I got an offer accepted on a HMO, purchase around, I don't know what it is, 140, whatever, 100-ish for the refurb. So about 250 all in. Great. And then with the buy-to-lets, so I'd nearly deployed the 400. And then I got another offer accepted. I went, oh, fuck, as always, like buses, they don't come one at a time. So then choice, do I back myself and buy both, knowing I haven't got the funds to refurb both, so I'm going to back myself to raise probably another 200 grand or something, or do I play it safe? Sod it, I'm backing myself. So I did it, bought both. I had a month's refurb money, and bear in mind each one is like eight grand a week. So it's 16 grand a week going out of your account. So you've got to replenish that pretty rapid. But I raised it. So suddenly I was up to about 600 or something in
Private finance.
Private finance. Then when we got the rejection on the hotel up in Scotland, we were walking down the street. This was before we actually got the rejection, but we had a feeling this ain't going well. We're walking down the road and there's this beautiful big building on the side. And one of us said, one day, eh? One day. And by the time we got to the other end of the car park, for sale. Couldn't believe it. So, oh my God.
Amazing.
When knocked on the door, he showed us round. He'd had enough. He just wanted out. So there's a distressed seller there, but not incredibly. He knew the value of the asset, basically.
Okay.
And then we looked into the deal. We worked out the deal could work. And ironically, the funds we'd have to put in were just over 600 odd K, which was almost to the pound exactly what I'd the total of what we'd raised prior. So it's like the universe said, right, Chris, yeah, it is a little teaser for you. Are you going to back yourself? And then I backed myself, and the universe went, well, there you go, mate. You back yourself. There's your reward. So you just never know. And I'm a great believer in get in your area, even for whatever reason, doesn't matter whether it's buy-to-lets, HMOs, whatever. You look on Rightmove just to get in your area. And when you're in your area is when the happy accidents happen. Like I've bought very few properties off Rightmove, but unless Rightmove gave me a reason to go to the area, I'd just be wandering around aimlessly. The number of times I've just took the action and then I thought happy accidents, I call them. And like I said, the hotel is the ultimate happy accident. That's like a life-changing deal.
Yeah. But you wouldn't go to that deal if you make all those steps prior to that.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a great book, again, with, The Slight Edge. Consistent, small steps, consistently taken, done well over a long period of time is how property's not a get-rich-quick scheme. It just isn't. Yeah. It's a build wealth slowly over time scheme, which isn't nearly as catchy, but it's true. But if you get yourself educated, so actually your ladder is against the right wall, so you've got to be doing the right things. Surround yourself by people who have done it and are doing it, and work on your mindset, because
absolutely
there's a lot. Like I do a bit of mentoring. One of my mentees, she got an offer accepted. It's a first deal. Got an offer accepted. Was it last week or the week before? And she'd just been gazumped. It was a corporate sale, so until we exchanged, to keep accepting offers.
Okay.
And this is things like that where the work you've done on your mindset pay off, because it's easy to become disheartened. Oh, it's not going to happen for me. Oh, I did all this, and everyone gets knockbacks. I remember one week, pretty early on, my first HMO, I think I was looking for, and I went up to Manchester. And I went up Thursday night. I had meetings all day Friday, social stuff in the evening, meetings with agents, angels, viewings, the whole thing. Literally everything was cancelled. Like everything, social viewings, the whole weekend. So I ended up just walking around doing the green, red streets, and I was driving back. It cost a fortune. It's my weekend when I could have been chilling, and I've literally got very little out of it, if not nothing. Following weekend, went again, go again. And it's the mindset stuff gives you that tenacity. It's
Wow.
massive.
I'm actually very happy that you mentioned 3 pillars of success, because you mentioned, of course, you've got the skills, which is obviously the knowledge, you've got the network, and you've got the mindset, because these 3 things will not, like, if one is missing, then the other, you can be championing the other 2, but it will be really hard to get to where you want to be. So I'm happy that you mentioned it. And following,
In a wider sense, prior to property, I had a similar thing with 3 pillars. Everybody needs some aptitude at whatever it is you're doing. And that's God given. Aptitude is just aptitude. Then you've got your hard work. So hard work can be getting trained, educated, and putting in the hours, doing the hard yards. And then there's a bit of luck. And luck is, again, not really quantifiable. Although the harder you work, the luckier you get.
of course,
So those 3 pillars, any 2, you do okay. If you're really talented and you work hard, but with shit luck, you'll still do okay. If you work really hard and you get lucky, you'll do okay. If you have all 3, happy days. And the 3 pillars of property, the knowledge, the network, and the mindset work with that really well.
no, absolutely. I
It all
agree.
ties together. It's many faceted. People go, "Oh, there's so many bits. How many do I need to do?" My answer is as many as you can, because all you're doing is stacking the odds in your favor. If you've got 30 offers out, do 35. You're going to have a better chance. Do 40. You'll have a better chance there. What, you done 40? Why don't you do 45? You're always taking action across the landscape or the ecosystem, whatever. You're raising money, you're doing your viewings, you're running your numbers, you're walking the streets, you're meeting other investors, you're driving miles. It's so many. I've got a slide. I'll share a slide with you. And I don't know whether you can edit it in. I do it on my property anniversaries. I do a slide, and it shows how many months in property and what it means. Like how many bathrooms, how many bedrooms, how many car crashes, how many planning apps, how many stench pipes broke, and you're like, shit. If you knew that at the beginning,
You wouldn't go for it.
it'd be too scary. You
Go
don't
for it.
start there. You don't start there. It's the slight edge, the slight edge, honestly. Just, there's the mountain. You're at the bottom of the mountain, get to that ridge, and it's just steps.
Yeah.
Steps are easy. But by the time you're in, because I think a little bit of blissful ignorance is a wonderful thing. The big steps I've made in my life, where I've made big decisions, where a lot of people thought I was bloody mental, they were probably cleverer than me because they could see what I was taking on. I was just enthusiastic and a bit blissfully ignorant. But by the time I was in and I saw it, I was in too deep, no turning back. And then that served me well. And it's the same with property. It's set some low-hanging, easy goals. So you want your first stage financial freedom, which is just your bills are paid, your rent's paid, but no luxuries, no extras, just those basics. Then once you do that, you're like, that's my overheads covered without me really doing any actual work from this point on. And then you just build on that, because then that's proof of concept. And until eventually you get in, now I've got too much cash flow, I can't spend it. What am I going to do with it? What do I do?
I'm sure that our listeners will know exactly what to do with that type of money, but it's good to be in
of
that
course.
position,
Well,
of course.
But the thing is, by the time you get that kind of money, the mind work you've gone through, the money isn't like, you almost resent wasting it, because throwing it round you ain't going to add to you happy. You're happy as anything. You've got freedom, you've got choices. Even if you stay in your job, you're staying in your job because you're choosing to, not because you have to.
Because you have to.
You can see you can refunnel that money back in, and that changes everything in your head. Now you're not trapped. Now it's a choice. So I had my design business. I stayed with my design business a lot longer than I needed to, partially because it would help me accelerate my portfolio. But actually, when I started, I was running away. Then the dream of what I was running away to became an opportunity, a reality. I could have done it like probably 18 months in, But actually then my goals changed. I had a different thing. And actually my day-to-day life, I was loving then. So now I'm not running away. Now I'm proactively making choices. You do have to set goals because some people are insatiable. So they just never stop. So they never get to enjoy. So I think that's a quality problem. But it is a thing. I see lots of people who, if they are doing what they say they're doing, which is always a question in property, they could have, I will never stop because I'd be bored. Even though I've got loads of interest, do loads of traveling and all that, I just love property now. No, I don't love property. I just like everything about it, like the friends I've met with it, the process, the negotiation, getting a deal, and just building wealth for my family and things like that. I don't think I'll ever stop. But
I'm really, I appreciate that a lot. And I'm impressed how some people just say that they started early on and they build that wealth over time. But it's not that everybody has to start fresh, like when they're young. And you started definitely later in your life and you've managed to build a substantial portfolio and substantial income in less than 10 years. So this is absolutely possible if somebody's planning for not just 2 or 3 months, planning for like years to come. I love it. And on top of
it'll be
that,
7 years in July. But the key to that is raising money. If you can't raise money, then you won't scale quickly.
no, absolutely. We all have limited funds, so we have to learn that skill if you're looking to be successful in BRR strategy. Absolutely agree. And you're very good at it because you already just mentioned that you raised 400K and then you raised another 200K, if I remember rightly.
It's over 1 million now. I've not got over 1 million out now, but I think it's about 1.15 that I've raised, like not counting the same money twice if it's gone again. So that's come in and gone out. And I think we're about 700 at the moment, 690, 700.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Really impressed. Well done for raising finance because you're definitely good at it. Then, Chris, one final question from me, because that question must have happened in this episode. And the question is, when we first met, not physically, but when we first met, what made you pass your property, your HMO, onto me?
Agent at the time, who's also a friend. So maybe a normal agent wouldn't have recommended you to me because they're almost talking themselves out of the work. But she just said, there's this guy approached us, the rent's good. And she, I don't know if she must have done some due diligence on having worked with me, the contract, we back and forward. I'm very thorough. And you were very reassuring at every stage. You built my confidence. And we didn't jump in from within a week or I think it was a few months from the first discussion to afterwards. And I've got to say, you've delivered on your promise. Annually, I might have a walk round the HMOs and they look as good today as they did when we handed them over.
That's that. I think you've touched a nail on the head because I always repeat to my clients as well, when they do any type of investing or even something in business, we have to deliver our promise. If we say that we're going to do something, we have to deliver on that 100% because otherwise we lose credibility very fast and it's very hard to gain it back. So
reputation,
really happy to hear that as well.
And you can lose it super quick.
Yeah.
And the property world's tiny. Everybody knows. You do something bad, everybody hears about it.
I guess you're absolutely right. And I'm really flattered. It's great to hear that that's perceived me and we built that relationship over time. And hopefully many more years to come. Maybe even one day we'll do a deal on the BRR. Who knows? Who knows? Awesome, Chris, you're amazing at BRI. You're amazing at raising finance. If somebody wanted to learn a little bit more about that and they would like to get in touch with you, what's the best way to contact you?
First instance, through my socials, you can contact me, DM me on Instagram, and that's COH Property, all one word. Or on Facebook, it's Christopher O'Hare, O''Hare. Yeah, if they DM me on either of those, then we can do.
No, absolutely brilliant. I really appreciate your time. I do appreciate you popping in and giving us like the entire story. You take us through the entire journey from the moment when you started, from the moment where you were so skeptical, to the moment where you really just scaled it up portfolio and now you live life full of abundance, freedom, financial freedom. And I know for a fact that you're traveling a lot. So you're living on you're delivering on your promise that you gave to yourself like time ago. So with this in mind, really appreciate everything you said. And I'm looking forward to meeting you, obviously, in person at some point. All the wisdom that you've given us today.
No worries. Anytime.
Thank you very much and take care.
Cheers, Camille.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Freedom Mastery Podcast. Please like, follow, and share the show. While you are at it, connect with us on Facebook and TikTok at Camille.Domsky or on Instagram at Camille_Domsky. Until next time.